Hey everybody, welcome to episode 13 of Innovating the Industrial World. I'm your host, John King, CEO of Cross Company, and I'm joined here by my really good friend, Lynn Crump. Lynn, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Lynn Crump. I am the president of Cross Automation. My background, I've actually worked in manufacturing, started say for 13 years. I did right out of college, I joined for 13 years, but actually I worked 6 years part-time in manufacturing. So if you look, I've worked in manufacturing for 19 years before joining Cross, and I have been with Cross now for 26 years, the president of Cross now since 2017. So it's been an awesome ride.
That's amazing. And pretty soon, actually, one of the things that we have a real treat is that in the next 3 weeks from now...
3 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? Yeah,
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Lynn is going to retire after 26 years.
That's right.
And he's got a pretty amazing story that we're excited to share. But Lynn is a very close friend and a real true inspiration to a lot of us. So what we're going to talk about in this episode, normally this is where we talk about some of the leading edge things, occasionally bleeding edge innovations that we do, and really neat things that we're doing with from an engineering perspective. And technically, we like to kind of geek out on things. But today, we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about why we automate. And Lynn has, with his experience, has a really inspirational story. I will tell you, when I first joined Cross, it was an incredible inspiration to me, which really summed up why I've loved this industry so much for so long. It's literally why we kind of get up every morning, because we're here. And Lynn's, I'd love for Lynn to tell his story, because what we do for people really helps to save and to support and to help grow manufacturing here in the United States and here locally in our community. So, Lynn, tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so, this thing of why, I really was challenged some time back to be thinking about and be able to identify why. Why does cross automation exist? Why do we have passion about serving our customers? And I also had to answer it for myself too, as I became the president of Cross Automation, is to be thinking about what really drives my passion and looking back at my career at Cross, and kind of what drove me to be successful, what drove me to these customers, and what drove me to help them to innovate and automate. And I really began to think about, first of all, the why is a lot around manufacturing and my passion behind manufacturing, and my belief that in our economic world, those countries, those people who thrive with manufacturing, those are the countries that really survive and do well. And I think it's super important that we focus and we concentrate on manufacturing. But it was a little bit deeper than that. It was a personal thing too. Something I didn't talk about in the introduction is I live in Western North Carolina. I live in what to be the furniture capital of the world. I was involved in furniture, involved in manufacturing. And quite honestly, I just saw all around me the degradation of manufacturing and looking at factories.
We would drive around communities and see hollowed out factories.
Yeah, factories that were closing. And I began to realize, what is going on? And is there a pattern here? And I began to realize that it was these companies that really failed to innovate and automate and to take advantage of automation that was going around in the world. Those were the companies that, in my mind, are the ones that were really struggling. Those are the ones who had made because of their decisions that the doors were closing. And I did not want that to happen, because, again, going back to manufacturing, I really felt like manufacturing was the answer to what was going on. And more than that, the innovation was the answer to going on. So it just woke me up and drove me personally to do that, which in essence was helping to drive cross automation.
Yeah, because those companies, those manufacturers could not competitively, when you and I were kids and we're running around in all the communities, literally in our backyard, those companies that were shutting down were not able to competitively manufacture these things here in the United States, and companies that were being able to do that more in different places. And why is that? Because they couldn't be competitive, because they couldn't do it for a low enough cost, or whether enough efficiency. They couldn't do it with as high quality as other places. And it is really truly what we're here to do. And it's made a difference, right? I mean, actually manufacturing is thriving here in North Carolina and thriving here in the Southeast and growing. There's no question about it. And that's why to me, it was so incredibly inspirational to hear Lynn talk about this, because he really talked about seeing this as literally as a kid and going into this career and into the career of manufacturing. And all the wonderful things that we do, or wonderful, but the innovative things, as we mentioned, the leading edge and bleeding edge things that we do to help people automate and become more competitive. At Cross, we talk about being competitive. We help our customers raise efficiency, lower risk, raise quality. Those things make them much, much, much more competitive. And if we improve quality, raise efficiency, and lower risk for those customers, they're going to be more competitive. If they're more competitive, they can make goods here, they can continue to grow here, they can employ people here, and instead of those plants shutting down, those plants are growing.
That's right.
And so there's some pretty neat examples, right, of things that we've been doing, and the things that we're doing now. We have a robot here in the background that can do some pretty cool things to make us much more competitive. So what are some examples of places where we've helped literally help them become more competitive?
Yeah, one of the most recent examples I have is actually somewhat close to my home. It's actually in the western North Carolina mountains. But to give you a little bit of information prior to that, really what's been going on, especially since COVID, has really been our customers' struggle to get manual labor and to be able to automate, innovate, and they're doing it because of their need to help replace this labor shortage that they've had. We had a customer in western North Carolina who the demands had really peaked, especially right after COVID. They were in an industry, again, where when everybody went to being
locked down at home.
Yeah. So, when everybody went to and they were locked down at home, the need for their product had just accelerated, which accelerated their business. Kind of put yourself in their shoes. They did that. Everybody's at home. Their business accelerated. They didn't have people to perform their work, and they really didn't know where to go. So that's where they called Cross Automation. So they called us. They had 13 lines that they were running their product on. Those lines were somewhat automated as a packaging, but when it came to actually putting the product into a box, when it actually came to putting those boxes on a pallet, they needed people, and quite frankly, they needed a lot of people.
Yeah, and they couldn't find them. And if they couldn't find them, they were not going to be able to make that product
100%. So they weren't able to meet the production needs. That's right.
But when you think about that, if you look, this robot right behind us, when you're recruiting a robot, you can buy that robot. It's not going to call in sick. It's not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to go do something else." And that's what we did for that company, right?
Yeah. And they'd have exhausted a lot of resources. They went through their temporary help. They had put ads in every social media thing that they could do. They had done everything they could think of to try to get people, and they just simply couldn't. So again, their answer was we had to automate that process, or they weren't going to meet production. If they didn't meet production, they weren't going to meet the profit that they were being required to meet. So that's where we came in, was to say, okay, help us understand, first of all, where can we automate? What can we do to automate?
And you were intimately involved in that from the get-go. So tell me, I know you walked through that plant and said, okay, I can help solve this.
Yeah.
So what did we do for them?
Well, we actually went through and did a plant tour. We did an analysis of the production processes, and really came to the first conclusion to say, hey, the most highly likelihood of the biggest likelihood of success, along with the least amount of complexity. Again, if you can get those two, you'll hit a home run. When we analyzed and got those two, we knew that the end-of-line palletizing was their biggest home run. So that was the process that we identified that we could help them automate, and we kicked that off. It took us, we're talking weeks of doing all the calculations to make absolutely sure that what we were going to do was going to be successful and we were going to meet the ROI that they had done. So that was really the first step of doing that, was to do the analysis within the plant tour.
And then after that analysis, what did we choose to go forward with first?
Well, we chose to go. Once we did that, we did a layout, and we ended up creating a palletizer for 4 lines. This company actually had 13 lines they were running. They were in such a desperate mode that they were interested in doing all 13, and we actually worked with them and said, okay, let's do the first 4 first.
Let's get this right.
Let's get this right. Let's make sure we can replicate it successfully. So we went ahead and attacked it, did the first 4, and then if you fast forward a few years, we've actually just finished up line number 9, and we're getting ready to work on the other 4.
And these things take large boxes, place them on the pallets, right?
That is correct.
And band those pallets up so they can ship them off, because they couldn't find anybody to do that.
They couldn't find the labor to be. And again, it sounds like an easy task, but it just takes people. And so to take a box off the line, put the box on a certain pattern, put that on a pallet, and then once the pallet's ready, the forklift operators would come and take them away. But again, just to be able to replicate that human task, they just couldn't do it, because again, it just took a lot of people. And for them, the people weren't available.
They couldn't find the people that are available. So now they can grow, which is great. But the other thing is they're more robust. They're more resilient when things are not going well. They have these processes automated so that they can have people that do other things that require a lot more skill and
That's correct.
A lot more brain power to get done than it does putting a box on a pallet. I mean, there's nothing arguably more noble to do than that, but if you can't find people to do it, you can't find people to do it. You can't be competitive here in the U.S. And then there's some other things that are a little bit higher technology that we work on as well, right? That have helped people grow. You have in the telecommunications industry a really another company and story that you have a lot of intimate knowledge of.
Yeah, I've been intimately involved as a salesperson when I first came to work with Cross. Of course, as a sales manager, and then as president, being intimately involved with a telecommunications customer. And by the way, they happen to be near my hometown. So a lot of the employees that work there, I know them intimately. So I'm very aware of the situation. And when I see these other companies who basically refuse to innovate and refuse to automate, and I saw them, slowly going out of business. But then this other company,
and those people that refuse to do that, a lot of times they're sitting around a conference room table going, "Okay, how are we gonna be competitive?" They go, I can't spend that kind of money. I'm not going to automate. Not that I don't want to, but that I just doesn't feel like you can.
See, it's either A, I don't want to, or I don't think I have the money, because it does take a little bit of capital investment. But again, we work.
But if you don't, it's you're literally not going to survive.
That is correct. Yeah. I can show you pictures of what happens if you don't.
Yeah.
So this other company is very close to us. They really are serious about innovating. They're very serious about automating, and there have been many expansions going on. Again, this is right in my back door. So they have been very successful because they took it, and they've partnered with. They've been a great partner of Cross Automation. We worked with them on many projects to help them innovate and automate.
One that I know of is that they had a system that we did to help cure a project. It required automating a curing process where we were able to increase their efficiency. We were able to literally increase their throughput by 33%, so a third more. When you do that third more, that means they don't have to add lines in other geographic places, like literally. It keeps that here close to home because they could sell it all. They had orders. They were ready. I mean, that increase of production meant they can actually sell those, and they don't need production lines somewhere else, because we were able to do it in the same footprint, but a third more productivity. That is all about making manufacturing more competitive, which is why we get up every morning to do these things. I mean, it's been an amazing career that way. It is why we do what we do, because when we go around to these communities, and these are people that we know and love, who have these jobs or work for, whether they're working in a manufacturing job or they're working for a job that supports that company. It keeps that here and keeps people able to be competitive in the U.S. And it's not. Sometimes it's a robot. Sometimes it is not necessarily a robot that's literally doing what kind of looks like a human's work, but it may be, automating a test machine. It may be, a process that we can make 33% better.
Sure.
It helps a lot. And you've been doing this your whole life, right?
I have. Yeah, sure have. And I tell you that, even though I'm retiring in a few weeks, when I take a look forward, this challenge that our customers are going to have with innovation and automation, or the need to do that, is only going to become greater, because this this challenge that our customers have of being able to find labor is only going to get greater.
Right.
This availability of the workforce, it's actually everything you read and everything I look at, it's going to become more and more of a challenge.
More and more difficult.
So so again, it's going to become more and more important that our customers pause and look and say, in my opinion, they really have no choice, to automate. You can, and you should put everything you can do about retaining all your good employees, about going out and recruiting some very good employees. But I think the challenge is going to be that the pool of where you're pulling from, the availability of workers, especially in manufacturing, I think is going to become less and less. So if that pool is less, you really don't have a lot of other choice to do.
If you're going to survive, you have to automate. And it's so interesting because it's somewhat counterintuitive. One of the things that you hear a lot about is this thing is not necessarily it's not literally to replace jobs. There are companies that automate. I mean, this is statistically true. I wish I had the more specific statistic in front of me right now. I'm sorry I don't. But companies that invest in automation on a significant basis actually employ more people, not less. So many people, oh my gosh, this means people are going to employ less people. They don't. They employ more because they survive and they grow. And like you're exactly right. This challenge, this problem of being able to find and grow manufacturing here in the United States is going to be with us a long, long time. And because we can do that, and we have what we believe is to be some of the smartest, hardest working people in the world, those companies can be increasingly more and more competitive, which is what, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because when I tell people what I do for them, people say, "What do you do for a living?" Well, I work for an ESOP company. I work for an employee-owned company, and we're all about helping manufacturing by innovation and automation. We're helping machine builders automate. We're helping the end user become more effective. We go in and do automation. Normally where their head goes is, oh, you're replacing people.
Yeah.
And when I think about the why, the why is not that we're not removing jobs, we're saving jobs.
We are saving
And I can give you examples after examples of companies where we've helped to innovate and automate, and it was an effort for them and for us working together for them to be more profitable. Most of the applications that we solve, the ROI, the return on investment, is less than 2 years.
It is, yeah.
So therefore again, you go back to the why. The why is we're here to save jobs. We're here to use and to implement automation in order to make companies more profitable, so that they stay here, so that they live here, so that me and my kids and everything who work in manufacturing, that they still have jobs when it comes up. Because if we don't innovate and automate, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. We won't. Yeah. And that is. Yeah, Lynn told this incredibly inspirational story when I first got here. As I said before, it literally brought me to tears to think, because that, and I've been doing it a long time at that point, but that's why we do it. That is 100% why we do it. Why we improve quality, why we raise efficiency and lower risk for companies, because it makes them more profitable, it makes them more competitive, and they stay here. And they not only stay here, but they grow here and they thrive here. And it is why we get up in the morning. So, in this holiday season, it's Thanksgiving, and we think a lot about what we're grateful for, and Christmas is coming up. We think a lot about why we do what we do. And it's a really wonderful story that I wanted to share with our audience because, as Lynn said, and I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, me too.
He's going to be retiring here in 3 weeks. So thank y'all for tuning in to Innovating the Industrial World. We really appreciate that. If you like what you've heard, please give us a like below this, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you know when our next episode is coming out. If you have any questions, you have any comments, please put them down in the comments. We do monitor that. We'll respond to those right away, especially if you have something to ask Lynn about, because we have a few weeks to do that.
Yeah, I'll be available, though, if you need me.
That's awesome. That's the why. We talk a lot about what we do here and the really cool things we do here, but this is why we do it.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.